Hey there, it's Michelle, and I have the one and only Stephen Houraghan joining me. Welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, other than we're twinning today, I can already tell that you're like a man on a mission. You know what you're talking about. So, before we dive into today's topic, can you share a little bit more about yourself, what you do, who you serve, all that good stuff? Maybe a little bit about your journey. That would be cool.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Yeah, so I'm originally from Ireland, but I'm based in Australia, and my background is actually traditionally in finance, believe it or not, going back some 10, 12 years ago. And then I made a pivot. I made a career change going from stockbroking into the world of graphic design and branding. And after a few years working in the agency world, I decided that I wanted to go out and freelance for myself, as you do when you pick up those skills and you start to get those referrals, and you start working for yourself. So that's what I did, and I was in the freelance space for a while, and I was doing quite well. I had a lot of referral business coming in, and then I kind of noticed this change within the market. I had been earning a certain amount and charging a certain amount with particular jobs, and the appetite from my clients and those referrals, they started to drop. They were getting a lot of this work done online overseas, and so that was a big kind of pivot for me. And that's when I dived into the world of, well, how can I differentiate myself? And that opened up this massive world of brand strategy, and I spent years kind of diving into that world. And in creating something for myself, I actually created this product and this kind of roadmap that my clients needed. And that's what I started to then provide for my clients. Instead of providing execution services on the design side, I was providing strategic services for my clients, brand strategy. And that led me down into this road of creating this framework. And I started to talk to my friends about it and teach my friends about it, and that became what's known today as Brand Master Academy. So that's where I focus on today, Brand Master Academy, teaching professional brand builders, graphic designers, copywriters how to kind of turn inward with the brands that they're building, rather than looking at the tactical work and the execution work, to look at the strategic side of things and really provide their clients with a better level of service than they might have done had they just focused on tactics. So that's kind of a 2-3 minute journey of where I've gotten to today, and that's where my focus is. I'm massively obsessed with brand and brand strategy, and that's all I do all day, every day.
I love it. I love it. So, we're talking today about how to connect dream clients that respect your talent and value, right? So, it's all about
Mm,
like elevating your authority and really setting yourself apart as the specialist. And I
yeah.
know, I secretly think I'm a graphic designer. Like I love doing that, right? Because that's the fun part. And a lot of
Mm,
people think that branding is your colors, your logo. And yes, it is, but not really when you're trying to grow your business, so to speak. Like you want to be remembered,
mhm,
or maybe, oh yeah, that was the place that had this pink whatever, right? But you want to position
yeah.
yourself as like that authority, that go-to for the problem that you want solved, right? So,
Mhm.
so when you,
Absolutely.
right, don't you agree? Because it is fun, right, to play with all that, but that's not going to make you money, right? So, can you describe what positioning is and why it's so important for brands?
Yeah, and look, I'll just touch a little bit on what you said a little earlier, because that it kind of highlights the transition that I had. That idea that your brand is your logo, and that's the fun side of things. And when business owners, they come up with an idea for a business, they create whatever offer they have, whether it's a product or a service, and then they're like, okay, this is great, I need a brand now. And they jump straight to the fun stuff. They jump straight to the colors and the naming and the logo. And
Mhm.
as you said, that's all the fun stuff. And us creatives, that's what we love to do. And I would do that all day, every day, and I did for quite a while. but there's a lot more behind the curtain. And if you don't understand what is going on behind the curtain, or what should be going on behind the curtain, then all you have is a pretty looking logo. Whereas what you're trying to actually do, you're trying to feed your business in a way that will grow, that will sustain itself, and ultimately create a better life for you and for the people around you, your employees, your family. And we can get really caught up with, making our font look good, or making our color palette or our website look good, but you really need to understand what is behind the curtain of a brand. Because the logo, and I've said this a million times, it's like the tip of the iceberg. You can see the logo, you can see the visual identity, but underneath the surface, you've got all of this other stuff. And if you don't know what it is, if you don't know how to construct it, if you don't know how it works, well, then all you got is a pretty logo. You don't have a brand. So one of the major aspects below the surface is what you just asked about, positioning. So positioning is, it's brand strategy 101. So if you do nothing else when developing your brand with strategy, position your brand. And positioning is essentially deciding what you want your audience to remember you for, and what that, if they are going to remember you, what is the value of what they're going to remember? Because at the end of the day, there are, a million cafes or a million hair salons, and that we all offer very similar products. In any given category, the products are similar. But if you're able to identify a very specific group of people within that market, not necessarily the whole market, because everybody needs a haircut, everybody needs a coffee, but if you're able to identify a very, very specific group of people who you want to serve, then you can start to speak to those people in a way that's a lot more relevant to them, compared to all of your other competitors who are trying to speak to everybody. But if you're able to get laser focused on exactly who it is that you want to target, and then you're able to tailor your brand, tailor your messaging, tailor your stories, everything about your brand to speak directly to that person, the journey that they're on, the struggles that they go through on a day-to-day basis, then you're able to relate to that person. And that's when they turn and look towards your brand, instead of all of the competition who are trying to appeal to everyone. So in a nutshell, that's what positioning is. It's about getting clarity on exactly who you want to target within your market, and then tailoring your brand to speak to exactly those people.
Mm-hmm. I love that because, and when you're talking about, because that's the whole thing, like how do you stand out from your competition and all that back and forth that everybody's like, well, I have this, or I have this extra bonus in my course, and really that's not what it's about, right? Because we all know that people buy from people. But then if you think about it, like what have you purchased or become a client of because they contribute to something, like they have a deeper meaning, or maybe they do something for their employees, or they hire a certain group of people. Like it's almost deeper, where they feel like they're a part of that movement, if you will, or that they're contributing to this bigger picture. So then that could be a way that you're positioning yourself, where it's like your values and, whatever your ethics are within your company. And then that's what people go to. So that to me is more of like the branding, like when you were talking about the positioning.
And look, that's the kind of the fluffy edges of branding. And when we get up to the likes of Nike or Patagonia, their values kind of come into play a lot more, because they've gone and established themselves, and they've proven to a very specific group of people that we have a very good product for you. When we get to the center point of branding, we really have to think of our audience as people who only want to know what's in it for me. What are you going to do in my life? How are you going to improve my life? So there's a lot that we can read. I'm sure you've read the book, or you've heard of Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and it goes into the ideological idea that if we start with why, if we know why we're doing what we're doing, then people are going to flock towards our brand. That can be taken with a pinch of salt.
Mm-hmm.
If we just decide what our why is and why we're in business, it doesn't really scratch that itch for the audience that we're trying to serve. Their first port of call, their first thought is, what's in it for me? What are you going to do for me? And if you can identify what their challenges are, and if you can address their challenges in a way that they're going to appreciate, that it's a little bit different to the experience that they're going to get from somebody else, and it speaks to who they are and the type of person that they are, their personality, that's where you're getting to a place where you're getting that early attention. Stepping back to the kind of fluffy side of branding, your why and your values, that's important. That is important, but getting crystal clear on who you're trying to help, what you're helping them with, and how what you're doing is a little bit different from your competitors, that's where you get that traction. And then you can build on that with your values and your purpose. But really, that's the crux, as you said, of positioning, and really telling your audience why they should choose you over your competitors. At the end of the day, that's what branding is about. It's telling your audience, this is why you should choose us over them.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Thank you for that. Okay. So one of the things that I learned, it had to be like maybe 4 years ago, maybe 5. My coach was talking about go deep instead of wide. Mm-hmm. Can you touch base on what that means? Because I don't want to give it away, because I want to hear your perspective on that, because when I heard that, I was like, what? It was like mind blown.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you an example. If, let's say, I am a digital marketing agency and I want to go into the market and I want to sell my services to the market, and I decide, okay, well, I've got a lot of skill sets. I'm going to offer SEO. I'm going to offer Facebook ads, YouTube ads, content marketing, content strategy. I'm going to do analytics. I'm going to be this one-stop shop for anybody looking for digital marketing. That's called wide. We're going wide with our range of products or services. On the other hand, I could go into that market and go, you know what, I've got all of these skill sets. I can do SEO, I can do Facebook ads, I can do, Google Analytics, but where I'm really, really skilled and where I have a lot of knowledge and where I can really connect with my audience is Facebook ads. So I'm going to go all in on Facebook ads. I'm going to become an absolute expert at Facebook ads in terms of managing campaigns, in terms of the creative, in terms of how we can leverage the system to also tap into Instagram ads and everything about Facebook ads. That is going deep. That is becoming a specialist in a certain area and learning absolutely everything you can about Facebook ads, so that when you're competing with this other person who is offering everything, they cannot compete on your level with Facebook ads, because they have to learn everything about SEO and Google Analytics. They have to stay up to date, and they spread themselves too thin. So going wide is offering a vast array of services and products. Going deep is specializing in one particular area and absolutely bossing it, learning absolutely everything you can so that you are an absolute expert in your field.
And what do you say to somebody that says, well, wait, I'm leaving money on the table if I don't do these other things?
Yeah. And look, I get it, because I crossed that bridge too. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm serving this client over here. I'm providing them with a brand strategy and a brand identity, but I know that they also need a website. I know that they also need Facebook ads. I know that they also need all of these other services. And if you extend yourself to offer those services for a particular client, you can generate more revenue doing that. It just makes sense. You've already earned the trust. They're prepared to hold your hand all the way down the road as long as you're prepared to do that. So it is counterproductive to say, well, if you specialize, you're going to make more money, or the riches are in the niches. But it's not until you're able to specialize will you start to earn a reputation within that field, and will others start to look at you as a specialist. So I understand that it is counterproductive to close the door on other business to say, hey, I'm specialized in this area. But if you don't do that, you will not build a specialized reputation, and you kind of might be seen as a bit of a jack of all trades. But look, I do understand that, and I get a lot of my students asking me about that as well. And what I say to them is, look, if you want to be specialized in one particular area, but you do offer these other services, a way that you can do that is to just develop your brand as a specialist, but continue to serve clients on the side. And then just don't add them to your portfolio. Don't talk about them on your website. You can still generate the revenue from them. So for example, if you were doing brand strategy or core brand services, but you also offer website services, but you don't want to be known for website services, you would provide those services on the side, but then don't talk about them on your website. Don't talk about them in your portfolio, because it then dilutes your specialized position. So what you do then is you build up your client base as a specialist until, the website jobs, they become a bit of hard work. You don't have as much time for those website jobs, and you can just refer them away, or just stop offering that service altogether, because you're now in a position where you've got all this business coming in because you've taken the time to hone your reputation on becoming a specialist. So that is a way that you can kind of combat the fear of closing the door on other business, continue to serve that business, but focus on building your reputation within a specialized area.
I love that. So basically the one-stop shop model is not dead.
Mm-hmm.
That was a question mark, because you do it like low key.
Look, it's not dead, and there are loads of different strategies that you can use. For example, you can be a digital marketing service, and you can have a landing page for your SEO. You can have a landing page for your Facebook ads, and you can go out and run marketing campaigns for all of those services if you have the resources to do that. It still works, but if you're starting off yourself and you have this core skill set, and you don't want to expand into a place where you don't have your finger on the pulse of all the services that you're offering, and you do want to become specialized, you do want to become known within this space, and you do want to serve a very particular type of client as well. And positioning really comes back to that. Who is your client? If you can't tell me with absolute specificity who your client is, what their types of challenges are, and what makes them different from the rest of the market, then you're not talking to them in a way that will make them feel connected. If, on the other hand, you do know exactly who they are, you do know why they're different to all the other people in the market looking for similar services, you do know what challenges they go through that are unique to them, then you've got something to work with. Then you've got messaging that you can put out there that will make them turn and go, hey, this guy understands who I am and knows what my problems are. And that's where trust starts to build. And that's branding 101 at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And I love that, because basically going deep is getting you to attract the clients who have the value that you serve, right?
Yeah, going deep is and it has to be aligned. Of course, you have to identify the audience first and foremost. You have to become, like, going back to Facebook ads as an example, you might be a Facebook ad specialist, but you might go even deeper. You might say, I'm a Facebook ad specialist for female coaches. So if you're able to say, I'm a Facebook ad specialist for female coaches, then if I'm a female coach and I know that my Facebook ad side of things, it's something that I need to add to my arsenal, and I only need that piece of the jigsaw, then if you're talking to me about my coaching and the types of campaigns that I can run and the types of ads that are absolutely killing it for other coaches, then you're getting my money ahead of the generalized Facebook ad guy who's just talking about Facebook ads, and definitely ahead of the one-stop shop who's talking SEO, Facebook ads, Google Analytics. So going deep is really about knowing who that client is first and the unique way that you're going to serve them.
I love that. I love that. As a matter of fact, the other day I saw a Facebook ads agency that she deals with teacherpreneurs. And in my head, my first thought was, I didn't know there was that many teacherpreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
However, she totally is going deep with the teacherpreneurs because that's her client and she's getting that voice, right?
And that is a growing market. So if you're able to find something that there's a little bit of blue ocean there at the moment, because nobody else is saying teacherpreneurs, nobody else is saying specifically Facebook ads for teacherpreneurs, she's ahead of the game. But she's ahead of the game going into a market that is growing. You might not know the word teacherpreneurs, and it might not be a household name today, but in 5 years time, 10 years time, and she's going to be way ahead of that. So it does take a bit of bravery to kind of go into something that's so niche, but I guarantee you she's helping other people in the background who are not teacherpreneurs until this grows to a place where, you know, it sustains itself. Or maybe that's where she is now, and she was dabbling with other clients in the beginning. But that's an example of specificity. You know, if I'm a teacher and I'm looking for Facebook ads, then, you know, I'm going to be speaking to that specialist every day of the week.
Yeah, I love that. So how do you convince clients that your offer is valuable?
Look, there's an element of sales about that. First of all, you have to have an offer that's valuable. You know, you can ask the question, how can you convince somebody that your offer is valuable? But let's make sure that we've ticked that box first and foremost, that you do have an offer that's valuable, that you do have an offer that's juicy, that's unique. If you do have an offer like that, then you've got something to work with. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can go the old-fashioned way and try to sell them, and if you have good sales skills, then you can do that. You can try and sell them into your services. I'm assuming here we're getting into the point of being on some kind of prospecting call or some kind of discovery call. But what I have found, and I found out the hard way because I've got a background in sales as well, and when I started to introduce my brand strategy services, one of the biggest mistakes that I made was trying to sell my clients into my brand strategy services, and it didn't work too well, because what I was doing was I was telling them that, you know, you've come to me looking for a logo, but what you really need is brand strategy. Now, it took me a while to figure out that this was not the right way, and many painful calls as well. But what I figured out over time was a really, really good way to convince your prospect that you have an offer of value is to earn their trust and allow them to decide for themselves. And one of the best ways to do that is to ask them really incisive questions. Now, what I mean by incisive questions is ask them questions in and around the problem that you're going to solve for them. And the types of questions that you're going to ask them are questions that will make them think to themselves, do I have a good answer for that question? Now, you don't want to make them feel stupid. You don't want to ask them questions where, you know, you're using terminology and, you know, you're coming off as a smart ass, or you're putting them in a position where you're like, see, you don't know anything. I know everything. You know, you don't want to do that. You want to ask them questions where they are able to give you, you know, decent answers, to kind of, you know, build that rapport, build that back and forth, but then have a few incisive questions that makes them think, maybe I don't have the answer to that. And if this person is asking that question, then there's a reason. They know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. So asking questions in a way that makes your prospect consider their own logic is a great way at earning trust. And if you do that well enough, you don't have to sell anything. You don't have to convince them of anything. You simply have to give them a pathway to solve their problem, because you've already earned the trust by asking these questions. You've already displayed authority, that you know what you're doing because you're asking these questions and controlling the conversation. And then you just have to give them an easy pathway to follow. And that's where, you know, the question that I asked before comes into play. Is your offer juicy? Do you have an easy way for them to take you up on that offer? And if you do, if you make it easy for them and you've done those previous steps and earned that trust, then you don't have to sell them anything.
I love that, because I know for me, even though one of the girls that worked for me or on my team, I was like, I hate selling. Like, I hate getting on these calls. And she's like, are you kidding me? You close every person. Like, and I'm like, well, I never really thought of it that way. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. But I love that you said, like, and that's where it is, right? The fear of it's making me uncomfortable. But I love that you said, like, give them a pathway to solve their own problem. And then, like,
Yeah.
you're the solution. Like, and that's really what it comes down to. And I think once you get into that, it's not like commission breath. It's not like I'm trying to convince you, right, or persuade you to make this decision. It's really just saying, hey, look, I'm here to serve you. And if you identified that you're on this path, that you need this problem solved or you need these things, then it's just easier for them to say yes. And you're coming from a place that of help, right, rather than convincing. And I think that's what doesn't sit well with most people, because you're like, wait a minute, did they really want it, or did I just convince them, you know?
100%. And I know that a lot of people have fear and imposter syndrome around, you know, selling their own products. And a great way to alleviate that is to turn up as the person who knows nothing. Turn up as the person who is just curious. Because if you turn up trying to be an expert and trying to flex your muscles, you put yourself on the spot of having to give advice and to show that you know what you're talking about. If, on the other hand, you turn up as someone who is just curious, that you know nothing about their problem, you know nothing about any kind of solution that you might give them, and you just turn up and ask questions. You just go, okay, what about this? And you know, can you tell me a bit more about that? And in engaging in that way, you're giving your prospect, first of all, a platform to just open up about this stuff that they probably don't speak to anybody else about. And then you're showing curiosity, and then you're showing understanding as well. When they're giving you those answers, you're showing that you understand what they're saying. You're showing interest. And these subtle interactions, they're just building that trust. And as long as you continue to ask those questions and you ask a few valuable, incisive questions, then, you know, you're really going to hit the spot with them.
I love that. Are there any other, like, tips that you want to give, or any other, like, parting words for us to be able to really, like, elevate our authority, right, and set ourselves apart?
Yes. So when it comes to your authority in the marketplace, it's really about honing your craft and voicing your opinions. It's very easy to look at other people, what other people are doing, and going, oh, you know, I want to be more like that person, or I wish I could sound like them. But you know, we're all individuals, right? So if you think about our individual environments within our own family, we all play a certain role within our family. We all have these traits and these characteristics. And you can ask your best friends, you know, what is it that you like about me, or what's different about me, or you know, what's my quirky side? And you know, if you know this stuff already, well then, you know, these are the things that you can tap into. If you're able to apply what you are like on a day-to-day basis with your friends and your family to what you're doing, and you're able to layer that with a bit of passion, and then put that out into the marketplace, that's the type of content, that's the type of persona that you're drawn to, because they're not just regurgitating what everybody else is saying. They're not just you know, they're not just taking what's already out there and putting it. They're bringing themselves to the table. And you know, with so much content out there, nobody's short of content, right? I'm not going to tell you or anybody else to go out. Just go out and start creating content. It's not the content, it's the personality, it's the way you deliver the content. Have a point of view, have an opinion, but then deliver it in your own unique way. If you want to say SHIT, I don't know if we can on this podcast, but on your own platform, you can say whatever you want.
Mhm.
You can be polarizing. And I would say be polarizing, point to things that you don't agree with and call them out as to why you don't agree with them. And just have your own opinion and bring your own personality to the table, and you'll start to generate interest in that way, more than just creating content. And when it comes to those individual calls, that authority that I spoke about before, it's all about those questions. It's going out, asking those questions, controlling that conversation with questions. And if you do those two things, then you're going to get so much more traction than just going out there and trying to just be another voice in the market, or be another person that you admire.
I love that so much. And as you were talking, I've been writing things down because there's so many things I need to do and improve on. And I did do something the other day. I didn't even realize it, that I guess it was like that. And one of my girlfriends in my mastermind was like, I love it that you just did that. And I was like, oh, because I was even like, oh, should I say this? Should I not say this? So you're like, what you're saying, I'm like, oh, it's true. I need to do more of that. How can I come from a different perspective? Because that's why I think a lot of people, you feel like, oh my God, everybody says the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like Gary Vee is somebody that comes to mind. It's like, you never know what he's going to say,
Yeah.
like it, right? So it's
Yeah.
almost like that TV show that you're like, wait, what's going to happen today? Versus, oh, this is going to be the same thing that everybody else says.
And look, this comes back to the very beginning of this conversation. If you show up knowing who your audience is and knowing who you are, and you give yourself, you're going to attract the type of people who you want to attract by putting yourself out there in a way that's not a facade. It's the more you give of who you really are at home, or who you really are with your friends, and the more you're able to speak your normal language, and put your own point of view on an idea or a principle or a theory, and tell people what you like about it, tell people what you don't like about it. That's when you start to you start to garner that interest from people that go, I like the cut of that guy's jib, or the way she's talking. And you attract people by your attributes and your personality traits, and that is a huge part of branding. So go out there, have an opinion, and layer your own self to it.
Oh my gosh, so good. I appreciate you so much for coming on the show today, Stephen. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yep, brandmasteracademy.com. That's the website. You can also find the YouTube channel by searching Brandmaster Academy on YouTube. They're probably the two best places. There's tons of videos on YouTube, tons of articles on the blog, and there's some pretty valuable downloads there as well. So get yourself involved.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Lovely. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, there you have it. Definitely go check Stephen out. I'll drop where you can find him in the show notes. Until next time, let's grow your business together.